All right, oh, gee. See, I scared myself. scared the dickens out of myself. My God. Couple of things. We're going to start moving the program on. A couple of observations I did make. I told a little bit of a fib when I first had my comments. I said the only thing I saved was my hat. It was the only thing that fit. But I remembered I have another thing I saved was the belt. When I had my Marine Corps uniform, we had a belt, and it's in my top drawer. And a Marine Corps belt has to be 2 to 4 inches beyond the clasp. And every now and then I go on upstairs and I put the belt on, and it goes to about here. Now, how the hell am I going to get 2 to 4 inches out of something like that? So that's another embarrassment. Everything went south. Another thing I noticed, and for you people that have been in the military, the breakfast was great. It really was. No ketchup. I mean, if you've ever been in the military, you showered everything you ate with ketchup. And ketchup was, you know, the service person's greatest friend. No matter how bad the chow was, you could throw ketchup on it. So, but Jerry Hurley found the ketchup. Maestro for life, music director for life, found. I noticed he had ketchup on his. So. Blue moon. I told Al Robichaud he's getting better. He's getting better when he sings his song. Okay, we're going to move the agenda a little bit because Dick Crew, the director of Veterans Affairs, I said, Dick, how long have you been doing this? 10 years? He says, 17 years. Holy crow, you don't think time flies? My word. Dick is in demand all over the United States, and he has to leave for another speaking engagement, so we're going to put him on a little early, okay? Then we're going to have our guests come on. So without further ado, please welcome Dick Crew.
I'm going to stay close to the microphone so you can all hear me. It reminded me of a story. As you all know, I spent 32 years in the Concord Police Department, and when I was going through the State Police Academy, where I was trained to be a police officer, you had to get up in front of the class, and you had to give a speech. And the speech wasn't told to you, the thing you're going to talk on, until you got in front of the camera. And once the camera, you can see the red light blinking, they're filming you, and all of a sudden the guy says, belt buckles. I had to talk for 5 minutes right off the cuff on belt buckles. And all I could think of is my Army experience of getting that lacquer. Remember this? Taking the lacquer off your belt buckles, and you had to get that brass to shine so you look sharp. Well, that was my 5-minute speech. Anyway, I'm going to go very quickly with you folks today. And I think Bob just told me he's got a shepherd's hook. He's going to yank me out of here if I go more than 5 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep this very brief. I just want to give you a couple thoughts. Veterans using the PXs. Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer in this subject just yet, but I know John Bottoms is. So anyway, veterans can now use the PX. You can use it online, as I understand it. And next month, in January, 2 months from now, you'll be able to physically walk into a PX, as I understand it. And you, as a veteran, not retired veterans only, which it's always been for, or for active military, you folks will be able to use the PXs. Good pricing, any orders over $49, free shipping. Just something to think about. My office, in October, I had a spike of about 30% increase of veterans needing assistance. These are low-income veterans who are still employable, who are having difficulty finding work, and this is what I do. I support them while they're looking for work, and we're busy. Another thing, I always get asked this question. How many veterans do we have here in Concord? 663. 663 people now identify themselves when they do the census each year as being veterans. So I did a little math on this. Now this isn't an exact science, but as I see it, 74 veterans, World War II. 155 veterans, Korean War. 302 veterans, Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam vet. 132 that remains. The 132 will be the Persian Gulf War, the first Persian Gulf War, OIF, OIE vets. This is your Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom veterans. Just point of interest, that's all that is. Another quick one. This December 1st, our good friend Tom Hudner, former Navy, retired captain, Commissioner of Veteran Services, Medal of Honor recipient, true hero. This is, the ship is going to be commissioned on December 1st in Boston. So if you have tickets, be there. The tickets are there are no more tickets left. So, but this is the ship that's going to be named after him, the DDG-116, U.S. Navy destroyer, after Tom Hudner. This is an artist's rendition of it that was given to me from Tom's sister, Mary. Finally, how am I doing? The hook isn't out yet. No, he's thinking about it. Yeah, I don't want to give this guy too much rope because I'm going to tell you, he's not a nice guy. He looks nice, but he's not. Okay, every year, my job is state benefits. This is what I do. I give out about $60,000 every year in state benefits to veterans that are low income here in Concord. However, the VA, the federal government, they have the big pockets, not me. So I just want you, because people don't realize how much comes to Concord from the federal government. In the town of Concord, we have 94 veterans that are anywhere from 10% to 100% service-connected disabled. They have a disability resulting from their service to our country. And Uncle Sam gives those 94 veterans $96,000 plus each month. There's another 6 surviving spouses of veterans here in Concord that receive another $8,000 each month. Then there is, the third group is pension. Some veterans actually, not retired veterans, that's a different group, but these are veterans that didn't retire. They did, anywhere from 2, 3, 4 years in the service, low income. They also receive a pension totaling $24,000 each month. So here's the math. You ready? There's a total of $132,000 monthly that comes to the town of Concord that's spent here in Concord, or I like to do it annually, $1.6 million. There are veterans here in Concord that are disabled or receive a pension, receive and spend here in the town of Concord $1.6 million annually. So it's a hidden number, but I always like to point it out, what our veterans have done for our country. I'm good. All right, Bob?
You're excellent.
All right, so thank you. I just wanted to give you those stats. I'm on my merry way right now to the Thoreau School, and I will be entertaining, for Veterans Day, 70 kindergartners. That's my next job. Thank you.
Dick, do you have an address for that online PX?
I do.
Vetverified.org.
Say again?
Vetverified.org.
You just went over the, I think he'll tell you at the end, okay? Anyway, is this yours, Dick? Are these
Can I
yours?
leave one? I do want that. Thank you, sir.
If he's going over to take care of 75 kindergartners, he may have a service-connected injury. And I wish you well, I wish you luck. We're fortunate have a couple of folks from the local VA to come over and talk to you about some of the activities that the Veterans Administration carry out. I know a lot of you veterans here avail yourself to the services of the Veterans Administration. So without further ado, the first speaker, I do believe, will be Laurel Holland, Chief of Voluntary Services, Bedford VA. Please welcome Laurel. Okay.
Can everyone hear me? For those of you Navy veterans, that Holland is the Holland of the Holland submarine, the first submarine the Navy ever bought. So I'm not a veteran, just love you all. On behalf of the Edith Norris Rogers Memorial Veterans Hospital, locally known as Bedford VA, thank you, veterans, families, veterans gone before us, and all the people who serve you. Thank you for joining us in our mission to serve those who have served. As I was introduced, I am the Chief of Voluntary Service, and at the hospital, I'll tell you a little bit about the hospital, and I won't be boring. You might want to have your tissues out if I get going too much. The hospital turned 90 years old this year. So as you know, this Veterans Day is the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. So when we opened, it was really to treat head-injured veterans and psychiatrically impaired veterans from the war, PTSD and all of that. Our very first patients were from the Spanish-American War, the Civil War, World War I. And now we currently have still some amazing World War II veterans, Korean War, Vietnam, and all of the post-9/11 conflicts, which we call the OEF, OIF, OND operation, Iraqi freedom, that's the post-9/11. And we have veterans who were blessed enough to serve in peacetime. Bedford VA is the largest nursing home in the country for veterans. We have about 350 patients up the street right now, and they all benefit from the thoughtfulness of our community. I love the placemats today. We have little kids that send cards to the patients and all of that. We have volunteer opportunities of everything you can possibly imagine, from singing, I heard a good singer, I'm going to get you, to visiting. We have a beautiful hospice. People don't often know all of the outpatient services we have at the hospital, and I want to tell you a little bit about that today. My background is a clinical social worker, so I worked with the homeless veterans for over 10 years at Bedford VA. And government work always has a lot of paperwork. It's not government if there's not a lot of paperwork. So when a homeless veteran comes in, right now at the hospital, this is happening, I promise you, with our homeless social work specialists. The paperwork, when we meet this homeless veteran, is about 30 pages long. And we have to do it as fast as we can so we can get them serious help immediately. So I just want to take you back to a real story in my past about 9 years ago, when a homeless veteran walked in. He was tall and strong and broken as a human being can be, sobbed at my desk, and I thought, oh my God, I feel like such a jerk writing all this stuff in the computer. I just want to be with this person. So I did this really probably a bad federal thing. I pushed the computer away and just sat and listened to the story of how this man became homeless. And every homeless veteran has a different story, but their needs are similar. And by having moved over now to voluntary services, part of my job is being able to get resources to these veterans especially, not just our inpatient veterans, but to our homeless veterans who are often the most in need. So you're gonna kind of hear a little bit of my heart in this. So this veteran said to me, my story started when I was 2 in Dallas, Texas, 1957. There was a terrible tornado, and it killed my mother, and she was holding my baby sister. They both died, and I had a head injury. So this is the beginning of this man's story of trauma and what he's done ever since that moment to recover. So I just have this feeling, you know, this is the moment of impact. I'm a clinician. Let's face this. We're here in this safe hospital. There are services. I said, you know, 1957, they had television cameras. Do you want to look on the internet with me and see if we can find a video of the tornado that killed your mother? And he said, let's do that. And so we both probably cried through this, but sure enough, if you Google that, you can find a lot of footage of this tornado, because what they say is it was so slow moving that it did enormous damage. And clearly in this man's life, the damage was extraordinary. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the end of the story, and then I'll go back to the middle. From that day 9 years ago to this person with nothing and no hope, highly suicidal, PTSD, addictions, all the things that, you know, run you to the ground. A year ago, I was invited to the Park Plaza Hotel, and I didn't know if I had anything fancy enough to wear, because this veteran was honored as the Veteran Advocate of the Year. He was up there with the owner of the Red Sox, being honored by the Veterans Legal Clinic. So you know by my telling you, it has a happy ending to the story. But the middle of the story, I would like to introduce Will Hatley, who's here today, to tell you a little bit about not only his recovery from that story that I just told you, but what he's doing now for veterans. And I hope what you hear in a really personal way is what goes on every day at your VA hospital and the kinds of impact we make when we don't forget our nation's heroes. So thank you for all you do, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce you, Will. Is that okay? Did I tell the truth?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Lauren, for that presentation. A little bit nervous, but this is not my first rodeo, but I'll try to give you the facts. To all the veterans that are here in the house, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, and thanks to the Council on Aging for inviting me here today. First of all, I always try to start off with a moment of silence for all our veterans, men and women that have passed on. So can we take a moment for a second? Okay, thank you. My name is Will Hatley. I'm a Navy veteran with depression, anxiety, and struggling with PTSD. On June 1st, 2009, I was at a crossroads. I was homeless, and I was ready to jump off a bridge. I didn't have 2 nickels, 2 dimes to rub together. I was, as people say on the streets, I was kicked to the curb. Didn't have a pot to piss in or anything. But I felt like it was over. I felt like at that moment, it was time for me to say, you know, it wasn't worth it to be here. And I said, let me try to give it one more shot. So I decided to go into the acute psych ward at the Bedford VA. I was there for 45 days because I was suicidal, and I was climbing up the walls, very confused, angry, frustrated, and didn't know that a lot of the problems that I was dealing with had to do with PTSD, had to do with what Laurel told you about. The loss of my mom, my baby sister. All of these things had affected me from childhood to going into the military, but it enhanced itself through drugs, through homelessness, through anxiety, through struggling with all types of disabilities. So I was there for 45 days, very suicidal, and I left there, and the VA offered me an intensive day treatment program for the next 30 days. What I'm trying to say is through the VA, I was able to find some hope. I was able to find some help. And a lot of guys that are out there on the streets, they don't want to ask for help because we're proud. We're too arrogant. We know everything. And a lot of times I just had to put my head between my tail and walk back in and ask for help. And this particular time I listened. I took suggestions. I kind of, like they say, walk the walk and talk the talk, but I listened because I needed help. And that day when I walked into Laurel's office and we sat down, it gave me hope that somebody cared, that somebody was willing to listen. And through those pictures and seeing that tornado, and it just reinforced the impact of what my life had gone through for those 40 years or something. And my life had been a mess, and I didn't know what it was. But I know that through talking, through group therapy, through individual therapy, through emotional feedback, through talking with other veterans that are dealing with emotional problems, that are dealing with depression, that are dealing with psychoanalysis, that there was help. And through that help came, my life began to turn the corner, thanks to the VA. When I was 2 years old, I lost my mom, my baby sister, in a tornado that came through that city. It left me with a broken arm, a broken leg, a fractured skull, and a broken heart because I had lost my mom. I mean, when you lose a mother, it takes a toll on you over time because that's the person who's going to be there for you throughout, day in and day out. So through that process of going into the next transitional housing, I began to work on art. And through my individual counseling, the counselor asked me, she said, so what are some of the things that you like to do? And I said, well, one of the things I did was I did a lot of art. And through that art, it took me, I did colored pencil. And it took me, I worked on this painting for about 8 months. And I did a little bit each day, a little bit each day. And that process began to help me because it gave me time to deal with that anxiety. Because a lot of times anxiety, your mind is racing, it's going everywhere. And it gave me a chance to just settle down. And the best thing for me was to get into myself, get to know who I was. Because a lot of times I'm always running to not sit down and think. Because when you think, all those things come to pass in my head. And I had to sit with myself. And through sitting with myself, I acknowledged those situations. I acknowledged those problems. I acknowledged those fears. And I got a grip on all those things. But I still had to do more. I still had to find something else. And through that process, I was offered a job at before that, I had gotten back into this program at the VA, and I ended up getting a job at Tewksbury Hospital, cleaning toilets. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it humbled me. It took me back to when I was in boot camp, when we had to clean corners with the toothbrush. Oh, I see some people can identify. And it really humbled me. And that day I would come from work and I would put my shoes outside the door and I'd walk in, take a shower, and I felt good about myself because number one, I was getting a paycheck. Number two, I was handling my responsibilities. I was getting an apartment. I finally got me a little hoopty car for $500 where I was able to go to meetings. And it taught me that it's not about having all the beautiful things in life. It's about being at peace with yourself, being happy with who you are. And so when I stayed there for about a year, and that was the best year of my life because I would go into those places and clean those toilets, and I felt good. I would sing and be happy. And then finally I got a rash from the chemicals, and I had to leave the job. And I said, oh God, what am I gonna do now? But you know what? God always opens doors if you take care of yourself and you do the right thing. And eventually a door opened, and I was able to walk through that door. And that was a job helping veterans finding work. And through that job, I found that there were barriers to veterans getting hired. Some of those barriers were legal issues, financial issues, child support, wrongful discharges. This gave me a great opportunity to help other veterans, to be supportive of them. I ended up collaborating with one of your townspeople here, Judge Kratzley, retired judge who lives here in Concord. He worked at Harvard Law School as a professor. I collaborated with him to bring Veterans Legal Services to start a legal clinic at the VA. They come every 6 weeks, and they deal with a lot of the veterans' problems. We also reach out to the community if there are veterans that have trusts, wills that they're interested in. They can help them with those. That gave me a passion, and through that passion, it gave me responsibility, it gave me desire, it gave me hope that I can go out and help other veterans that were just like me, that are starving for a life, starving to make something happen. I also have to give them motivation too, and tell them that you gotta get up every day and do this, because nobody's gonna do it for you. I also collaborated with American Consumer Credit Counseling to start a financial wellness group, a drop-in group at the VA for vets and their families, to introduce them to federal, state, and community avenues, agencies that serve our veterans, such as the vet rep here. I collaborate with a lot of the vet reps around the Bedford area, in Lowell, Bedford, Lexington, North Billerica. And we also will work with the community centers, not community centers, the career centers, to find veterans jobs. And a lot of times I go out and I do job carving. I take veterans out, I show them, I initiate programs, and I find myself working harder. I worked so hard that I had to have surgery on my foot, but I'm still out here working now. But the one thing about it is I appreciate it, I enjoy it, and it's a happy feeling. And I know that I can get a lot of things done because I know what the VA shouldn't do, and I have to fight for it because I have to fight for our veterans because I'm an advocate. Winning that award last year was awesome. It was unbelievable because I did a lot of hard work in the last 4 years since taking on this job. And from a young man, well, 9 years ago, being homeless, to 2015, December of 2015, I bought a condo in Drakehead and was able to have the priest come out and anoint the house and everything. That was awesome. That was a great feeling. It shows that it can be done. Success is out there. And I'll tell you, there was a lot of people that helped me along the way. A lot of people, like you, like others, like volunteers. through our legal clinic and our financial wellness group. I have one volunteer who's a Marine veteran who comes out and helps me with that. He's like 80 years old, but he comes and he does his share of work. He supports me in everything that I do. And I went from jumping off that bridge that day to now helping other vets who are in that same place that I was a few years ago. People like you are the inspiration that give me and my staff and other veterans the drive to keep on improving with their lives for those who have served. I want to thank you so much for inviting me here today. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story with you. And I really appreciate it.
I hope we're not boring, okay? So I just wanted to thank you, Will. He's just a perfect example of a homeless veteran who can walk in your office any day and who any of us are if we have the right support. So the community is part of making sure that Will and other veterans have all of our support, because when they come back like this, he helps homeless veterans every day. It's just a force multiplier. So I just want to let you know, I put my phone numbers and the little brochure in the back by the cups, and if you're interested in getting in touch with me, or you have questions, or you want to know someone inside the VA because it's a complicated system, I can happily help you. Ideas for volunteering and how to make voluntary office handles volunteers and donations. If you want to make any difference in those ways, that's in the brochure in the back. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that, first of all, you're welcome to come to the VA. This Sunday we have a big concert at 1:30 with the Vocal Revolution. That's a men's choir. We're going to line the halls with volunteers to just clap for the veterans as they get wheeled into the theater. They love to know you haven't forgotten them. And we have so many heroes. Will is certainly one of them. So many heroes. And your Tom Hudner was one of our heroes that we feel every single day there. He loved the hospital. He helped us with so many things. So I want you to know you're welcome there, and if you have the interest to meet anyone or come and be part of it, I can help you to do that. So thank you again, and thank you, Tina, for inviting us today. Okay.
Thank you, Laurel and Will. You know, when Laurel and Will were talking, I think all of us think that we can get through this life alone, and you can't. When you're young, you think you're bulletproof and, you know, you can survive anything, and you can't. I've learned that in my, I won't tell you how old I am, but anyway, in the time that I've been around. Will said he gets up.
The kids are going to show up at 10:35, just to make you aware.
Okay. She told me to shut up. No, she didn't. My wife says that a lot. No, wait a minute. Nervous and tense when you get up and speak, Will, is totally normal. That's normal. The difference is, what do you do next? Do you knuckle down to that anxiety and depression, or do you move forward? You move forward. I'm a PhD in booze. I'm a PhD in depression. I'm a PhD in anxiety. And I got through all of those with the help of a lot of different people. And people need people. And if you think you don't, you're making a big mistake. So I want to personally thank you both. Thank you for sharing your story. This life is a full contact sport, and you get whacked around. And I got a lot of people who have helped me along the way, and you're doing exactly what you should be doing, and great that you're reaching out to folks. Okay, we got a little problem here. We got a little problem. I'm supposed to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. Now, if you tell me when you got into boot camp and, how many push-ups you did and all that, we're in trouble. I'm the only one that can do that. But anyway, World War II guys, you just stand up. You World War II veterans, will you please stand up? Good. I remember the day World War II started. And I was walking down Westchester Road and someone threw up the window and said, the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor. What the hell's Pearl Harbor? We didn't have television then. All right, you guys, flesh. Stanley, did you stand up?
I can't hear what you're saying.
For Christ's sake, Stanley, stand up.
I can't either.
Stanley is 94 years old. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, name, rank, and serial number.
Peter Orlando, Radioman First Class, 203-6399.
75 years. Doctor, who are you?
Who wants to know? Sergeant Robert McKinley. I'm 92.
You're 92. Hey. D12 program, World War II. Good for you. Doctor.
You just introduced me. Why do I need it? Stan Albrecht, U.S. Army Engineers, staff sergeant.
Normandy. Gentlemen, now, when the kids come in, I gotta be quiet. I may not get to everybody, but go ahead.
Charles Davis, 93. I was in the land on the south coast of Japan on the LSM 305.
Yeah, 17739. Doctor.
First Hammer, LSD 1040, the Philippine Islands, and Okinawa, and Peter Orlando was 96, and I'm 95.
Stanley, you're a child. 96, 95. Give me another World War II guy.
Okay, here we are, World War II, Italy. And I came over from here and went there, and it was a wonderful experience to the extent that I was immediately given the support for our airfield and air cut. And that was something, but we had a wonderful time and got through beautifully.
In one piece. Doctor.
Bill McCall, I was in the Pacific on a destroyer tender, and I'm glad you dropped the bombs because I'm here today.
Thank you very much, you World War II guys. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to you right here. She's talking about the military museum in Natick, World War II museum. You should go to it. I've been there. I've been there with Tom Hudna. She gave her uniform for that. So go to the museum.
Thank you. I'm Marty Stenson. I served 4 years in World War II. And what I did was copy the Japanese code.
Okay, World War II guys. The kids are coming in. Tell me when the kids are ready. So you may not get Korea. Everybody in Korea, get out. You qualify. I've always said spouses qualify.
Carl Henley, first family, Korea station in Austria, his signal corps.
Signal Corps. Bernie talked to us last year. He's going back to Korea.
Yeah, Bernie Smith, U.S. Army Signal Corps, 8189 Signal Support Battalion.
Outstanding. Doctor?
Jack Hutchinson, 1st Cavalry Division, Korea.
Doctor?
I'm still Coleman in the Navy, and if you're in the Navy and you haven't gone aboard ship after 3 years, you could possibly be transferred to the Marine Corps, which I was.
Coleman, it could be. Doctor?
Robert Maloney, U.S. Army, Artillery.
I know this.
Thank you, Bob. Paul Levine, U.S. Army, 65th Engineers in Korea, course, RA 1244960. I will never forget that number.
Yeah, I know my rifle number, but someone asked me my telephone number, I can't tell me. I'm Bill Mongia, was in the Army, and I spent my time in Texas rather than Korea. They had the ceasefire. But I'm not sure if Texas and Korea. US 51, 24, 21, 75. That's the number you have to get. That's correct. That is, that's right. I left all my extras in Texas.
Name is John Lee. I was a lieutenant in the United States Navy, served aboard the Wasp in the Western Pacific.
This is Mike 2. He has 4 holes in one. 2 on the same day.
Korea. Robert McHugh, 7th Infantry Division, Korea.
You tell me, Tina, when you need it, okay? Go ahead, Doctor.
Bert Vero, Captain, Air Force, and I spent my time in Florida at the missile base, A03033245.
1682899. Thank you, Korean guys. Are they ready? Okay, bring the kids in. We'll get the Vietnam vets when the kids sing, okay? All right, guys. Ooh! You love me. It's the world. Yeah, innocent. These guys are super.
Morning, everyone. I don't think you're going to know the words to the first song, but the others I think you will, and the children would love it if you sang along. If you do know the first one, though, feel free. All right, everybody ready?
Everybody steps on me, so I'm a little cracked, you see. I'm a nut, I'm a nut, I'm a nut, I'm a nut, I'm a nut. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the ocean waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that river highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. There is 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out of the old ball game. You're a grand old fat, you're a fine fat, and forever in peace may you reign. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. There is never a post or brand. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. Happy Veterans
Don't worry about it. Take a few extra minutes. It's fine.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's fine. Yeah.
I love kids until they get to be about 10. Then they change. The world gets to them. I have 3 kids. My middle boy. He said, Dad, how do I keep my children away from the world? And I said, I don't know. And they have such innocence, and it's so pure. You know, we relate that one. What happens is you get all surrounded with all this negative stuff. That's all you hear about. And you become cynical. I'm cynical as dick. And then it's hard on. That's beautiful. They were just absolutely. Vietnam guy. Vietnam era guy. We don't have any young people here. You got to be 100 years old to. John
Bottoms. Signal Corps, 66, 67, Saigon.
Thank you. David, talk to me.
Dave Shaver, I was a lieutenant, U.S. Navy, aboard the USS Yosemite station in Newport, Rhode Island.
Vietnam, where are you, Vietnam? Back here. Back here. Oh, there he is. When the fight starts, Billy's on my side. Good.
Good morning, everyone. Will Hatley. I was U.S. Navy destroyer, DD-940. Basically, we weren't in Vietnam, but we were over in the Mediterranean.
Hey, I don't care where you were. You gave 3, 4, 5 years of your life to the military. That's a sacrifice. And people aren't required to make that sacrifice. Yeah, they think freedom's free. Guess what?
It ain't.
You put it in the same school of grammar I went to. Vietnam guy. No, okay.
Now, this is World War II, but I just want to mention my son is retired colonel in the Air Force, and my grandson is now a pilot in the Air Force.
A litany of military history. Vietnam, more Vietnam. Give me Vietnam. Vietnam. Me. Bob Marquis, 077394, rifle number 1682899. Captain, United States Marine Corps, 14 months in the Bowery. We overlook you. All right, we don't overlook you. Go ahead, Mary.
Mary Hutchinson. I was a flight medevac nurse, trauma nurse in Iraq.
hold it in the world because these corpsmen and medevacs, you get people with nothing to fly. And they get them to places where they can get fixed. And they can get fixed very well. Herb, I can remember corpsmen, they were in better shape than we were. I mean, we were in good shape. That's when I was young and beautiful, but that all went away.
What happened?
Yeah, what happened? Everything went south. Everybody introduced, you know, when you see me around and you want something to change in this program, just stop me. Helen stopped me and said, you know, we should introduce veterans, and we did. And it's one of the best part of the programs, and I thank you, Helen, for that. Peter Orlando, he came to me and said, Bob, you know, some of my friends have died during the past year. Why don't we, you know, pay homage to them? And so we did. And those are the two things we include. So if you guys see me wandering around, and I wander around a lot, I got an address in my shirt just to send me home. Here, give me a thing. Okay, how are we doing? God damn, we may get this thing in. Let me see what we got to do next. A couple of things. Got to thank a lot of people for, you know, this little show that goes on. Tina does a lot of stuff. She puts the program together. She calls me up, we meet, and she just tells me what to do. And I add a couple of things. Then she does, you know, and then I do it. So she does a lot. Harvey Wheeler gift shop. You know, the money that comes for that. The Concord Lions, of which I've been member for 25 years. Thank you for the floral arrangements that you've done. Alcott Schools. God, don't they make the print bigger? Fourth graders that, then we got somebody that did, and the singers from the Carol. They were terrific. God's sake, we're going to put them on for 15 or 20 minutes next time. For the speakers, thanks a lot, you guys. You know, you really helped us be good. And the volunteers for the COA. They do a lot of good. It's a great COA. And, you know, I really appreciate it. My closing comments, 45 minutes condensed to 5 or 3. Entitled is Freedom's Not Free. People don't understand that. When you think about it, we live in a pretty good country. We're free. And that's a tough word to assimilate. We can do what we want when we want. And not many people can do that. And 80% of the people in this world are pretty nice people. But we lose them because all we hear about are the morons, the 20%. And what happens then is we get negative, then we get cynical, and we can't do that. That's part of aging. You get cynical, and you can't. You've got to keep the innocence that these little kids had. Somehow you got to keep that spark going and not get inundated with all this negative stuff. But today's world is different from we were little guys. It was simpler. When I was coming up in the 30s and 40s, there were 125 million people in the world, in the country. There are, 325 million now? So we're growing. When World War II started, there were 130 million. 16.5 million of those people served in the military. Lots. I remember the day after World War II started, you couldn't get near the draft board. Everybody was trying to sign up. I remember my father coming home being disappointed that they wouldn't take him because he was too old, 40 years old. Then one day some guy figured out that we shouldn't have the draft anymore. Really a great idea. Any guy or person in here that's been in the military will look back and say, it's probably one of the most valuable experiences of their life. I come to the COA lunches, and you walk around, 5 minutes into those lunches, they're talking about their military experiences. That was 50, 60, 70 years ago. You don't think those things were valuable? They were hurtful, they were traumatic. You bear the scars that are embossed into your mind forever, but still, you talk about that value. Someone has to pay for that freedom. Someone has to. People today aren't paying for it, but someone has. What has the cost been for our freedom? World War II, 405,000 killed, 671,000 wounded. with a population of about 130,000 million, 16% of the people served in the military in one form or another. Korea, 36,000 killed, 103,000 wounded, 8.7 million served. Vietnam, 58,000 killed, 302,000 wounded. As our population gets higher and higher, less and less people serve, from 16% of the population down to 4%. We know freedom isn't free. We're some of the few that understand that. But a lot of people walk around here and think freedom is assumed. They think freedom is free. And you know what kind of value you put on something that's free? Zero. We understand, and we think of our friends who aren't here today, that paid the price for freedom as all of us in this room have. And I just want you guys and ladies, and all you little people that sang, be proud of yourself, because you've paid the bill for the freedom that a lot of people are exerting today. And don't take one step back as far as your service to our country has been. And on behalf of everybody that doesn't know that freedom isn't free, I want to thank you all for your service and for coming here today and think the good thoughts. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next year. All of you. Thank you. Oh, you got it.
It's on.
It's on.
I want to thank Bob for doing such a good job at emceeing today, and thank you all for coming. And this is one of my very favorite events here, and I have to let you know I'm very proud of this too. This is my seventh year doing the Veterans Day breakfast, and I can't be more pleased to be with you all today. Thank you.
And it lasted. It lasted.
Thank you, Doctor. I call everybody doctor.
Make sure
Hello?
don't forget the peacetime.
Is this off?
Yeah.
Can you put it on? I just want to...
You want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, I will. All right, thank you, and I will remember. Wait a minute.
It'll be too late, you said.